Cool, we can start. This is the first panel after the break, so I hope every one of you got to grab some coffee, and I think we also have some new people in the room. So maybe we do this temperature check again. I asked this question early this morning, but I think some of the people left already. Who of you guys is already building with AI and in the intersection of crypto? That's cool. And maybe are there some new people that are a bit pessimistic about AI use cases in crypto? Oh, yes, we do have new people in the room because in the morning was zero hand raising about this. Cool. Yeah, I'm Zoe. I'm VP and partner at Phala Network. We are very glad to be here. We are one of the co-sponsors of this event. Thank you, Olas, again for having us. And the morning and early afternoon was already very, very interesting. We had deep discussions, mainly about the use cases or high level how AI and crypto can actually create valuable use cases. Now we want to dive deeper actually in the architecture, right? The topic of today, or this panel, is technologies for AI agent use cases at the nexus of on and off chain. And then we have a subtitle, so it's pretty long: indexes, knowledge graphs, RPCs, and zkML, to cover all the projects that we have present here. Let me see if I think maybe it's easier if you guys introduce yourself and we combine this with the first question. Because 5 panel speakers, always a long line to introduce. So please combine, of course, your introduction about yourself with the first question, because I think it's very important for the whole room here now to understand where each of the technologies, when we talk about architecture, where each of your technologies or projects actually lies in the crypto AI infrastructure architecture, if you would visualize it, okay? And if you would like to add, in case it's already happening, if there are any integrations, if in case you work together, you can talk about this to the audience as well. Thank you.
Let's kick it off. So I'm Olshansky, everybody. I'm head of protocol at POKT Network. And for those that aren't familiar with POKT, it's a decentralized RPC protocol. The short of it is it's an incentive layer for full nodes. So you send RPCs, you need an endpoint to have a full node response to them. And where we actually lie at the intersection of crypto and AI is what we recently realized is that we've been designing a network for incentivizing nodes. And how we can leverage that is incentivizing these nodes to run LLMs instead of just writing full nodes. So let me can I throw a question to the audience?
Yeah, sure, answer.
I'll throw, who here has used an LLM? Okay, who here downloaded and ran the LLM locally? It's less, I see less hands up. Who here used an endpoint of LLM from some other third-party service? All right, so we got some hands. And the thing is that downloading an LLM locally, it requires a lot of effort to really configure it and make it efficient. And so what we're doing with POKT Network is giving you an endpoint to a decentralized network of providers to access basically any LLM you want. I'm going to stop there and kind of let the rest of the speakers introduce themselves as well.
I think Stephen follows well on this, yeah.
Hey guys, I'm Stephen King, and I'm the co-founder of the indexing company. And so our whole mission is to make Web3 data more accessible. Web3 tends to have this rite of passage when it comes to getting data. You know, you start with an API, and then you move to some custom logic, and before you know it, you graduate to creating your own indexing infrastructure. And so our whole objective is to automate the creation and the management of these pipelines.
Hi, I'm Kartin, the co-founder of Aura, previously HyperOracle, and we are the on-chain verifiable Oracle protocol that enable any AI model on blockchain. And we host a smart contract called on-chain AI Oracle smart contract on Ethereum mainnet. So any smart contract can just send the prompt with the model nomination to this smart contract, and then it will execute the inference for you, and then return the result in the callback when the smart contract is ready.
Hello everyone, I'm Fran, co-founder of Giza. Our main mission is to bring zkML and this infrastructure to the broad developers, data scientists, and ML engineers, so they can build easily these ML solutions for Web3 and to plug in inferences into smart contracts.
Hi, everybody. I'm Daniel. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of a company called Modulus. And we're like the less cool version of Giza, which is to say we're a zkML company, but we're like a bunch of academics, very bookish, not very charismatic. But we do our best, nonetheless.
To add maybe where Modulus Labs adds into or fits into the architecture, if you would visualize it.
I guess, so I'm not familiar with many of the services on this panel, but I can say kind of the point of zkML is to make a cryptographic statement that the result that you queried is from the model you queried, right? So, when you query GPT-4, you get a result from GPT-4, a little contrived. And it seems like this kind of technology is most important when, the trust assumptions are more tenuous, let's say, right? And so I think depending on the use cases that we will discuss as a panel, zkML represents one extreme end of the spectrum where you don't trust the model provider. While on the other end of the spectrum, you have OpenAI. So that's where we fit into the offering. Yeah.
Perfect. So let's jump into directly some challenges. We discussed several use cases earlier today. How, because you are in the infrastructure providers, fit into this? Like, how does what kind of challenges are coming up actually in serving two AI agents instead of just let's say bots?
Okay, so if we want to compare serving two AI agents instead of bots, it's the fact that as a human, like if your first prompt, I think we've all kind of played around with prompting over the last year or two. If it doesn't work, you just try again, right? You customize the prompt a bit and try again, and then you kind of have a conversation going. Getting agents to that point is, I think, we're on a path to get there, but it's non-trivial, right? So as long as there's just enough kind of, okay, this is a heavy loaded term. I'm just going to stop it saying that getting an agent to iterate on its prompt is going to be a very hard problem. So just making sure it has access to the resources it needs, to the different models that it needs, to either deterministic or probabilistic approaches to do that prompt. That was kind of the first step to a very long problem that we're probably all going to solve together.
Kartin, from your perspective, I think you have great use cases on that.
The great use case of Aura?
No, the same question. Like, what is the difference for you to cater to AI agents?
Yeah, so I think the biggest problem right now for the AI industry is that like closing source the model is the only way that you can make your model profitable. And we crypto people come to here to resolve this problem, right? Because when everything is in a black box, you don't know what's going on, and you won't be able to know if it's evil or not, right? So we can use crypto to make it open source, make it become sustainable. And in Aura, our goal is that we financialize all the open source AI model on blockchain so that people can own the AI model actually. And so we know that like right now, pretty much nobody can have a share of like OpenAI, right? But you can have a share of Llama 2, have a share of Stability AI on blockchain, I guess, in the future.
Fran, would you like to comment?
Yeah, for me, like an agent is just basically something that interacts, in this case, with smart contracts to create some adaptability to how they operate. So if instead of just us managing, for example, liquidity in a liquidity pool of Uniswap, we have an agent who is basically managing all this liquidity and rebalancing to reduce impermanent loss. This is something that I would consider an agent instead of just a bot, because a bot will be something that just like is very dumb and just like executes transactions, and that's it. That's from my perspective.
Actually, one more thing I want to throw out. Who here in the audience is familiar with what a vibe check is? Has anyone raise your hand if you've heard of a vibe check? Right? Okay. Right? And it's funny because we all know what a vibe check is. And it's, as engineers or protocol developers or builders, like we always think of code and we always thinking about things very deterministically. And this is where, something like Modulus Labs, which, not familiar with, but your explanation seems to, provide that. Agents will need something very verifiable, deterministic in verifying a response, right? With Pocket Network, for example, we're just trying to build the supply and the demand and creating a network where you can access everything, but a human can still do the vibe check when you get a response. But once you got agents talking to each other, that's where kind of that sort of integration really plays well and is much, much, much more necessary than just one network on its own.
Daniel, do you maybe want to talk about some existing integrations that you do with other infrastructure providers?
Sure, yeah. Let me start by saying I love that. Yeah, like the new slogan for Modulus should be like mathematical vibe checks for AI, because that'll probably net us a higher valuation as well. Yeah, you know, I think my background, the background of the team, we're like 2 years from doing AI research. So like a lot of the literature has moved beyond that. Like when I hear AI agent, I don't even really know what that means. Thank you, Fran, for defining it. That was super helpful. So we have not really classified our integration by this new language. Nonetheless, the integrations that we do have generally falls along the lines of where, again, you know, the trust assumptions around AI provider and AI consumer is not as robust. So as an example, you know, one of our partners is a company called WorldCoin. So in their case, they want to run biometrics on the user's local device so that if you throw your phone in the river, there goes your data, right? It's not stored with Sam Altman or Alex or anyone else, which is pretty sexy. That would be like a best-in-class product, right? The problem, of course, is if you move the compute to the edge where the user has self-custody of their biometrics, then you open up this massive attack vector for the user to run that process, say in an emulated environment, right? Or feed in doctored data, whatever, right? And so we zk prove that this AI process occurred with integrity, right? So this didn't run in a fraudulent manner, and now the user gets privacy-preserving biometrics and identity authentication, while the service provider gets high integrity analysis of that biometric information and the capacity to render that service, you know, without any issues. So that's one very concrete example. There's also like a hosted version of this, right, where you know you have a cloud provider basically running analyses and AI processes where the integrity really matters. But yeah, we do expect kind of this kind of use case to increase as basically AI becomes just a bigger part of our society. Maybe some of these networks need additional security augmentation. So that's maybe where the infra integration would come in. Yeah.
Fran, how does it look from your perspective as a ML platform provider? Maybe some integrations to the Web3 world already.
Yeah, from our perspective, as we are like developer focused, we want to provide the best tooling for people to work with, in this case with zkML and tools like Modulus, but in a very friendly way for developers to build with, which is basically Python and similar libraries, or they can use like TensorFlow or PyTorch, but they don't need to understand the underlying complexities of ZK. So that's where like companies like Modulus or even compute providers can come into the underlying infrastructure that we provide. And in terms of use cases, most of the things that we see currently with kind of demand is mostly related to financial applications, in this case DeFi. And we think I think this is a very good opportunity to make all these protocols much more efficient in how they operate in different primitives that they are basically managing.
Stephen, would you like to comment on this? Like how, or maybe also from your perspective, how does the demand maybe has changed for the specific crypto AI use case?
Yeah, so recently, in the last couple of months, we've seen obviously a big, or a demand in general, I guess, from people building in Web3 and in AI. But mostly, for us, it's been, you have these large language models that are trained off of all of this, you know, publicly available data, but they're missing this financial piece that's being built around the world, right? Web3. And so, whether you're building a project, you know, on Ethereum or you're an AI researcher, getting data is really difficult. I mean, these API providers, what they do is they just take data off chain, they add some light processing, and then resell it over API access. And so, what we said was, and actually we took inspiration from the transformer, and we said, well, what if we parallelize everything and process this data in real time, and then just eliminate APIs altogether and put it right directly into the database? And so we built this sort of intelligent configuration layer that is the directions to go source, transform, and deliver the data. But we still have to solve for the human to machine component, which is the translation of what's the input, and then we got the output is all the directions to transform and deliver it. So.
Thank you so much, Olshansky. Daniel too, can I say so? No, from your perspective, how does your RPC network maybe changes or the demand for your RPC network when we talk about AI use cases specifically?
Yeah, so when I think about demand, Stefan just talked about kind of the demand for data, and demand for labeling, and all of those. When we think about demand, and even let's just take a step back, because Pocket Network's been around for over 3 years. It was just RPCs. So we're always about like, what is the demand to query an RPC node, right? You might be building a DeFi app, or it might be an institutional client, or it might just be an enthusiast, right? The demand comes from different places. Sometimes it's spam, like there's lots of spam demand, MEV demand. So now that we're going into AI, like when I think about demand, I think about like who is the end user, which could be, these could be academics that kind of want to use the network to run some experiments and simulation. Or these could be real like production use cases where you just need an endpoint to run inference one time, get your response, and move on. And so we are looking at kind of trying to onboard demand from different sources. But the important thing to note is, for example, quality of service is very, very important depending on the client, right? So let's say developer enthusiasts don't really care about having 9 nines in their like in our uptime. But once you're going to get into like real institutional clients, the demand's going to have higher SLAs and SLOs in a sense.
Would anyone else would like to comment on this?
Yeah, I think like we can, once we enable a large language model on blockchain, we can build a lot of interesting application on it. So yesterday we put the OAO on Ethereum mainnet. So now you can just use the smart contract to execute a Llama 2 and Stable Diffusion in Ethereum mainnet. So I see people have built some really interesting on-chain game. It's like you send a prompt into the Stable Diffusion and then generate a Pokemon. And then that Pokemon as the input for the Llama, and then generate the personality of that Pokemon. And then the whole process happen on-chain, verifiable, and then you will make it become an asset. You can buy and trade. It's your own on-chain Pokemon. And this kind of thing, I think, will change the on-chain gaming industry. And another usage will be like, once you can have like an AI agent to manage the DAO, a language model to manage the DAO, you can enable many interesting usage, right? For example, right, like why we can only use ETH to be a collateral to make a DAO, right? Why we don't adapt some like new ERC20 coin just launch, right? Because like we need a DAO management, it's really low efficient. Then if you use the large language model to do that, it will become way more efficient on chain.
Any other thoughts?
I mean this half jokingly, but I guess demand always goes back to Pokemon. Never fails.
That's true, that's true.
It will, I mean, legitimately, it will drive a lot of usage if we have really cool use cases like this across the entire stack.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about numbers and specific. You wanted to comment? No, okay. Numbers specifically about costs and performance. This is always two parameters that are very important in crypto, of course, in all the technologies areas. If you can explain how your technology, I just summarized it like this, actually impacts cost and performance, either on a positive or negative way. And let's say in the case for AI use cases, Fran, in your case, maybe also towards crypto use cases. Yeah. You can start, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so in our case, as we are like focused initially into all these potential DeFi use cases, you don't need LLMs or anything like that to create like a real impact on something that is like really useful. If you take a look of what kind of models, topologies are being used in finance or fintech companies or banks even to create very good financial products, none of them are LLMs or none of them are like huge neural networks. It's just probabilistic models like decision trees or similar. So in terms of cost, the overhead of running these models in order to be consumed in a trustless way using zkML, which is basically what provides the best trust guarantees in terms of uses inside smart contracts, the overhead is quite minimal. Like you can have maybe 1 minute proving time, 30 seconds, even less if you use Modulus. So I think cost is going to be commoditized down the line. So the importance is basically how you build these solutions and how you integrate it in a trustless way. Because in the end, people, even if gas costs are super high in Ethereum, people still use it because it's secure. And even if the costs of ZK are high, they provide you trust guarantees instead of going with other approaches.
Okay, Daniel, what's your? You can also talk about your use case specifically, right?
Sure. Yeah, I totally agree with Fran. I think the point is very salient. But I guess just to answer the question really directly, it's like fucking expensive, right? Like ZK is like a lot. Is the TLDR, but the kind of assumption here is that security matters, and that the use cases that you'll see on the zkML side of the spectrum will be meaningfully different than everywhere else on the spectrum. And I started Modulus because I want to work on hard problems, right? And I want to work on the problems that kind of make sense in 100 years, right? Fran and I have been talking about this in the past, but the point is that in the future, right, where AGI is here and just AI models in general are really performant, I want to make sure that we are working on the kinds of endgame technologies that's going to make a difference in this world and make the world a better place, right? Until then, ZK is not only a premium, but an expensive one, right? And we're working really hard on bringing that overhead down, that in our entire industry, all of academia in this world, and there's great progress. But in the meantime, we're Cartier, right? And at the end of the day, you want a Cartier, you don't want a Timex. No offense to Timexes. Yeah.
Kartin, would like to hear your comment because you're a bit more advanced, of course, than Modulus Labs, and maybe you have worked already on some optimization processes.
Yeah, so a year ago, we open sourced a library called OPML, Optimistic Machine Learning, that pretty much utilized the game theory and tokenomic to ensure the guarantee the security of the on-chain AI inference. And now we can already have that with $5 gas fee, and you can do an LLM call on Ethereum mainnet smart contract. And we can also do stable diffusion now. So we have the test-to-test and test-to-image large model on-chain. I think the problem for zkML is that, because we want to use a large model, the model is just going to be larger and larger every year, right? And the stronger model, the more connection, more layer in this neural network, it just have better performance than the smaller one. And but the cost for the zkMLs pretty much grow exponentially. That's why we try to explore another direction besides zkML. And the biggest problem for OPML before was that the input itself is open. So which means if someone pay higher gas in the on-chain AI oracle, then it will be able to run the transaction faster than the original proposal. So in the proving system, we just announced last week, OPI, Optimistic Privacy Preserved Machine Learning AI. That system also used the ZK circuit to security the neural network input layer, because we know that AI model itself essentially is like a many-layer neural network, right? The first few layers is the input layer. We use the ZK to do that. Then you'll be able to have the privacy preserved feature for the AI inference. And then in the aggregation layer, then you can also use the ZK to do that. So you can finalize or aggregate some sensitive wave in the final layer. Then you'll be able to have the on blockchain privacy preserved. But in the same time, you have the benefit for ZK and OP.
Stephen and Daniel too afterwards. So, how do you tackle the cost and performance issue?
Yeah, so the performance by parallelizing everything, you can do things, as everyone here knows, much faster. So in terms of Web3 adding a new data source, we added Ethereum in 3 hours. We did Solana in not much more than that. And so you can do things much quicker, and then you would need less people to set up. So right now it's on average about 2 engineers to set up and maintain these data pipelines. And if you can automate a lot of that, then you remove that you remove the people equation as well, and then you open this door so that all these agents can start to live on chain and start streaming, I guess, data rather than calling all these different APIs.
Yeah, so first thing is, as Daniel number 2, this is one of the reasons why I also go by Olshansky. But on a serious note, when people bring up the topic of like performance and latency, this is why within the Pocket network, there's the actual supplier network. So an opportunity to run any open source database or model or chain. And I'm actually really excited because like anytime a new model is going to come up, let's say it's fine. Let's say you have like Llama 70B fine-tuned for chairs, or like fine-tuned for like talking about Windows, right? That could be a separate service within this decentralized supplier network that agents can really like identify. It's like, oh, this is what I need to talk about. But on top of that, there are decentralized gateways. And the gateways are actually the ones that are responsible for the quality of service, because you can have very non-performant nodes. You could have someone trying to do inference on a CPU, right? It is possible, but it's very, very slow. And that's why sooner or later, they'll be so unprofitable or so slow that they'll be weeded out. So if there's one node running on a GPU and 1,000 nodes running on CPUs, these gateways will essentially just send all the traffic to the GPUs. And we have a very long kind of plan of moving all these signals and report cards and identification on chain, but we all know how hard that is. But I'm kind of just excited of like seeing the gradual process of just getting as much supply as possible, and the gateways will be, which are also decentralized, will be the central source of getting you the best answer, like to those agents that need it in return.
Thank you so much. Closing question, we'd look into the future, talk about adoption, specifically, Daniel, we start with you regarding zkML. You just mentioned maybe not super production ready yet. What are you, or you personally at Modulus Labs are doing to push adoption forward? And we want to adopt it to AI use cases, of course.
Yeah, this is a great question. So as of today, there's about 400,000 AI proofs on Ethereum. And I think all of them are ZK, between Fran and I anyways, yeah. So I think it's pretty production ready. And if you want to join the fun, just let either of us know, and we'll get you what you need. But that's tiny, like in the grand scheme of things, right? Like 99.9999% of the world's AI compute is trusted. Which makes sense because there is that cost advantage, there is the branding advantage. Outside of this room and maybe this city right now, who even knows about ZK or math or whatever, right? And I think that is the default path for society, right? The kind of frontiers of the next generation of cutting edge models will belong to the centralized players, and they will compound on those advantages. And that's kind of sad, right? Especially when we talk about kind of what the world's gonna look like in 100 years, when our doctors and lawyers and whatever are all AI models. So for me anyways, this is kind of almost a religious mission, right? We're here to embrace what crypto is great at, which is to disintermediate those centralized trust authorities from our networks and make sure that the future is built on the robust rails of mathematics. And there are no more robust rails than ZK. So if you are excited about that vision, right, I would genuinely encourage you to, bear arms, and in this case, the arms are math, and kind of join the folks, on this stage, all of us really, in making sure that the world is a more robust place. Yeah.
How do we see the future? We call it smart contracts, but the smart side is lacking. I mean, there's nothing smart about the smart contract currently. So if we can just bring machine learning and inferences in a trustless way using zkML in this case into smart contracts, we can create much more efficient functionalities and primitives on how the current blockchain works. And this a problem is that blockchain is not easy to learn in terms of like how do you access data to train models, how the tooling is being used, how do you integrate that into current protocols. So the first thing that we need to make is basically create a better ecosystem for developers that are working in the traditional markets come here and build solutions that actually matter, because not everyone in the blockchain knows about ML and even less about ZK. So we need better adoption of developers.
Yeah, I think like I kind of disagree with the only the big player, centralized player can have the best model in the industry, because the big tensor subnetworks have already proved to us that like they have really good LLM that have really close performance with the ChatGPT 4, and so with the correct incentivization and the tokenomics, I think the crypto community can actually generate a better AI model than the centralized player, because it's like, think about this, right? Back to 300 years ago, in the age of discovery, only the royal family and big businessmen can have a ship and do the business overseas. And so that's why Dutch people have invented the stock market, because they want to gather the power of people to build a ship, and then they will have like the stock to claim their share when the ship makes some money. So like overseas industry is no longer like only belong to some small monopoly and royal family. It become like it started the age of industrial revolution actually, because this innovation of a mechanism. So today in Aura, we going to do the help AI company to do the initial model offering. So pretty much that, like as an open source AI developer, you can just contact with us, deploy your model, and then tokenize your model, and use the power of the community to help to contribute to your model, help you have more money to do the training for your model, gather more data for your model, et cetera, et cetera. And so by the people, the power of the people, I think we can make a better AI model, and it will be open source.
Stephen, in your case, maybe not ZK related, but how are you pushing your or the indexing technology forward to get adopted within AI use cases?
Sure. So we're kind of, I guess we're a little bit different than a lot of the panelists up here, only because we're not providing AI services. We're actually using AI to automate, this data challenge that we have in Web3. But it's relevant to AI because, I talk to folks all the time, and they're doing either like federated learning or a big theme this week is agents, living on chain, doing all these transactions. And in order to realize that world, we have to unlock the ability to normalize this raw data and very quickly. And so but when we do, and that's what we're focused on, then you can have these worlds, then you can have these data marketplaces where you can resell data and you can train and you can do inference and all the proofs. I feel like the amount of proofs that are going to be generated just from AI and training and things like that is going to be, that alone could probably be its own data source. But so for us, that's the unlock and what we're building towards. So.
Olshansky, last words to you. How are you pushing RPCs forward to getting adopted in AI use cases?
Yeah, so in terms of where we're going with adoption, literally we had a consensus breaking upgrade 2 weeks ago to take the first step and enable LLM APIs on our network. Like really, really excited about it. I already know some people in the audience who I know will be involved in our initial launch. But what I'm really also seeing in the future is, I spoke to some projects today, which are like incentive layers for your weights or incentive layers for your data sets. And even here on the panel, we're all kind of playing different roles in this decentralized AI stack. So in that, I can talk about this at length and, making OpenAI open again. But what I'm really excited about is maybe like having like Monte Carlo like simulations with agents on chain, right? Because we have something at stake. We have a payment channel. We can go the verifiable path, the non-verifiable path. We have like data that's indexed that you can use. We're just trying to provide that marketplace to make sure that all the LLMs have an incentive to be highly available on chain. And putting all of this together, I genuinely think that maybe in the next like 6 to 24 months, someone's going to come out with really cool like papers or blog posts or like simulations of what agents can really do in some different ways.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I would like to close the panel discussion here. I think we got a good overview of different infrastructure providers, and I think we can use the rest of the event to network and see how we can actually integrate with each other. Maybe we have time for 1 or 2 questions from the audience in case there are any questions. All right, this doesn't look like any questions. So yeah, feel free to network with all of the speakers afterward. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.